Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Come Play podcast. This is episode 33. Here today is myself, Tyler, Brendy, and Bobby. Say what's up, guys.
It's Friday the 13th, motherfucker.
On a full moon.
On a full moon. Better count your
And-
blessings.
And Zach, not with us today on the injured reserve.
What is he injured for? Like, what was the injury?
Well, I diagnosed it as a sore pussy.
Okay.
So
Probably accurate.
Oh,
Zach
God.
is not here today, but that's okay. The show must go on. And we're going to talk. We have a lot of interesting topics that I'm really excited for this one.
We're going to fucking punch each other in the face and see which one hurts the most.
That sounds good.
All right.
Anyway, let's get it started. So today we're going to talk about our two main topics today is going to be salary cap in sports and should college athletes be paid. It's been a big debate, and we're going to chime in on that. But first, we will go to the salary cap in sports. Something that we've talked on here briefly as something we were like, hey, we'll talk about this later. And here's later. So, yeah, we're going to get into that today and start that discussion. So, I'll start this off by asking a question. How it's just a simple question, really. What side of the fence are we on here, boys?
The right one.
Well, that's a good answer. I mean, I feel like there's only one right answer. But yeah, let's get into it. So, a lot of I've been on record to say that I am not a fan of one thing in baseball, and that being this not having a salary cap. That drives me insane. I think it's bad for the sport, and so saying that, what side of the fence I'm on. But yeah, that's always been the thing. I've always said, baseball is kind of dying, and I always cited that as one of the reasons. Wow, voice crack! Holy Jesus,
Mate.
boys. Starting off hot, yeah. so yeah, yeah, I've always stated that, and for me, I just think it so you look at the four-man sports, right? Hockey, basketball, baseball, and football. You got three sports with salary cap, and one with not, without salary cap. And in my opinion, at this state, at this time, I would say baseball, the one without the salary cap, out of the four main sports, is the least popular. Would you guys agree or no?
Of
Of basketball,
No.
football, and hockey and baseball.
And like just popularity in general?
Yeah, like the popularity for the sport in general. Yeah.
No, I would not agree with that.
Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
Would you say hockey is below baseball?
I mean, just barely. Like not much.
I think hockey's still the lowest at the moment. I think baseball simply is thriving on tradition alone, like the fact that it's still called America's pastime and everything like that. I think just how much of the country is tied to the game of baseball is definitely what's keeping it in its place right now. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, it's funny. I'm looking at an article now. In the first half of the season, this is coming from awfulannouncing.com, Joe Lucia. He says that local viewership is down 4% in the first half of the season from the MLB compared to last year.
I don't know. I just feel like
No.
everybody is just not I just feel like everybody I talk to is just not liking baseball as much as like it was a couple years ago.
There's there could be a million reasons for it, and I mean, I know we're gonna mainly talk about the salary cap extensively, but a couple other issues you keep in mind, or at least one other one, is that the game is too slow. That's been a problem for a while, especially for. I think baseball is the hardest sport to get a casual fan into, because you kind of have to wait and see what happens. Like anybody who gets baseball, knows why certain things happen, why the game is played how it is. But you're trying to get somebody who may not be really familiar with baseball into it, and it's like, wait, why like nothing's happening? Nothing's happening. Oh, okay, home run. Okay, nothing's happening. Okay, nothing's happening. Okay, nothing's happening. Like that's for the casual viewer, you know? I feel like in hockey, basketball, and football, every single second is action packed. Like there's no slowdown in any of those sports. So I think that's part of baseball's problem.
So I just want to add on, Tyler. You said that baseball, like you kind of thought it was dying, um, or that it has been regressing in the past few years. Um, if you're to have said that like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I'd probably agree. But I would say now like it's actually doing like really well um because you have these athletes that are like basically kids like 20, 21 years old, and they're hitting 450-foot bombs like they're nothing, and that's becoming more of like a regular thing now that the casual viewer can enjoy.
Yeah, I think.
um, and
Sorry, go
and
ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say like, and to also like bring up Bobby's points. It's like, well, at that point, that's not really a salary cap issue, um, because um, I, I guess what I'm just trying to say is, I don't necessarily think the salary cap is the issue that baseball is facing. I agree with Bobby when he said like it's the fact that like the games are just like really long now, and I think there's a few things that baseball can do to fix that, but I don't think a salary cap would have anything to do with that.
I
Um,
will backpedal and say that I think salary cap is an indirect reason why baseball is possibly losing viewership. I'll say that, and I can explain that position in a minute.
so I think one of the most frustrating things. So like me, I'm like a hardcore baseball fan, and like I'll watch just about any game. One of the most frustrating things to me is when so like, let's say like you sub out the starting pitcher, he's had a good outing or whatever. First relief pitcher comes in, um, gives up a single, pitching change instantly. Like that's what is frustrating to me. It's like, if you want to know what's making the games like, you know out like at least an hour long nowadays, like that's why, like there's too many pitching changes going on for useless reasons. Like I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that, um teams. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that, teams are scoring more, or it's more of like I guess it's becoming more of a tactical thing now, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But it's like almost too tactical at this point. So to the point where like Major League Baseball has had to step in and be like, okay, we're limiting the amount of mound visits nowadays.
And Gabe Kapler's playing chess out here. You guys are all just falling behind.
Exactly.
So I know we just started the show, but we do have some breaking news.
Oh, wait. Oh, god damn it. Okay. Hold on. All right.
Coming from the NHL, the Toronto Maple Leafs and Mitch Marner have agreed on a 6-year contract extension with an annual average value of $10.8 million.
Jesus Christ. Okay, it's finally over. Dear God.
Yeah, so
Please.
I just wanted to add that because it's been like one of the biggest topics of the hockey summer. That's all I'm going to keep it at. I just needed to say that because it
Okay, so
just broke from
now
JSN.
there should be no reason for connecting to hold out anymore. Right? Right?
Well, I don't know.
God damn you.
Anyway, but yeah, to continue so I say the salary cap is affecting baseball, and this is why. I believe a salary cap keeps sports competitive, and I think so. For example, if you're comparing like hockey and baseball, right now in baseball, obviously no salary cap. The There is such a difference between the top of the teams in the league and the bottom. It's almost like crazy. So you look at the standings. This was for the NL. You got the Marlins with 51 wins, and then it's a huge jump up for Colorado 62, Pittsburgh 66, Cincinnati 68. You go to like the top of the league. You got the Dodgers, a team that has a huge payroll with 95 wins. Obviously, Atlanta doesn't have a huge payroll, but 91 wins, just being up there. St. Louis 82 wins. I also had the
Well,
wrong thing up.
you want to know why Atlanta has low payrolls? Because Ozzy Albies needs to fire his fucking agent.
Yeah, well, that is true. But like, there's just a huge discrepancy. You got again, like the Dodgers are a prime example. I mean, this is a team with, I don't know what the payroll is, but I know it's like top five in the league. They have 95 wins, and you just have all these teams at the top with all these wins. And then if you look at the AL, same thing. You got Seattle with 60 wins. You got Detroit with 43, Kansas City with 55, Baltimore with 47, and then at the top you got
43 wins. Jesus.
yeah, 43 wins and 102 losses. Their winning percentage is .297, if you were wondering.
Gosh.
But at the top of the league, you got 95, 87, 89, 97, and then just to wrap it all up, if you look at the wild card. Um, y in the AL, you got the 2 wild card spots. You got Cleveland, who's a half a game back, and then every other team is 9.5 back or more. I think a salary cap creates a bigger playing field because if you look on the hockey side, now obviously this is about half they play half the games that a MLB team would, but you have totals that are not ridiculously blown out of the water. The West last year, you had Calgary leading the league with 107 points, and this is the Western Conference. I'm looking at the conference as a whole. They're first. The eighth best team had 90 points. And if you go even further, the 12th best team had 81. Now I know it's still a big gap, but you're also looking at in hockey. Obviously, it's not like they had 107 wins. They had you know 2 points per win in overtime, so it's much more competitive. That's why I think baseball is dying because the competitiveness, and I think the competitiveness because of the salary cap.
So I want to just briefly explain for those that may not know. So Major League Baseball does have what is known as a luxury tax, which for
Yeah,
Major League Baseball, it's like basically like the softest like a salary cap could possibly even be. But just to like briefly give a gist, so um basically at the beginning of each year there's like a certain threshold also known as like a ceiling that's set by the commissioner. It limits how much a team can spend on their players, like basically similar to like just about any other salary cap. But the thing is like if you go over that threshold, like the penalty is so soft that there's basically no salary cap.
right.
It's essentially I forget what the percentage is. I think it's about 20% for Major League Baseball, which is basically like an extra quarter for like a every $2 you're spending. So like it's not that bad, but like so like when you're think I don't know what the penalty is for going over in hockey if there is one.
You can't go over this. Like you literally can't.
Okay, well then hockey is the only sport where you really can't, I suppose. Um, but but like in the NBA, it's basically like a 100% tax where it's like you have to pay like exactly double.
Well, I don't know if the MLB is the same way, but I know in the NBA, like you can basically you can't go over the salary cap for like signing free agents, but you can go over the salary cap to sign players that were already on your roster, and then you would get hit with a luxury tax. But like, cause
Well,
like,
the luxury tax though is like so big though,
yeah,
that it's basically like going over the cap like a lot.
right. So, because I remember last year with the Golden State Warriors, like everybody's assuming, KD was going to leave, and he eventually did. But technically, Golden State could have went over the salary cap, paid him, got the luxury tax. But I mean, it would have been a huge hit,
Right.
and
And
that's why I had to do it.
that's known as bird rights, by the way.
Yeah,
Um, basically, a player has to be on a team for 3 years in order to be eligible for that.
yeah. But I actually didn't know how it was in the MLB. But I'm pretty sure like you can go out and sign free agents, like even if
Yeah,
you're over, and then just get hit with a luxury tax.
right. So Major League Baseball, it's like luxury tax, uh, like you can sign like any players willy nilly in Major League Baseball for any price, but like there is a luxury tax. But like I said, it is very very soft. And another point that you've had, Tyler. So like a lot of a good way to represent like how good a sport is doing is to like kind of look at like what the salary cap like ceiling is.
Mhm.
So back in um, back in 2003, the threshold for Major League Baseball was 117 million dollars, and this year it was 206 million dollars. So that's double what it was, a few years ago.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. I'm saying it wrong. I guess you go on Twitter, and I guess it depends who you follow, right? But like, I feel like there's more likely you're gonna see basketball news or NFL news, or just like I feel like it's just not like baseball is not as relevant on social media as other sports. I don't know, and the other thing I say about like the whole, you know, uh, popularity too is that I feel like, and it's a long season. I get it in baseball, but you watch a baseball game in the middle of June. You're watching a Marlins game in the middle of June. There's like maybe 1,000 people in the seats. It feels like there's probably more than that, but like it feels like about 1,000 people. You
Well,
want Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but that's a different problem of its own. That's not necessarily a
Right,
salary cap problem.
right. But like I'm just saying, like I feel like it's more likely for you to see empty seats, like a lot of empty seats at a baseball game more than like a football game, a basketball game, a
Well,
hockey game.
so Major League Baseball has actually done like a really, really good job of kind of moving into the modern era when it comes to broadcasting its games. Like they have like they broadcast like a few games. They broadcast like one or two games a week on YouTube
YouTube,
for
yeah,
free.
it's like the YouTube game of the week or something like that.
And even then, like you can easily like find a stream online, like if you have some sort of subscription, I'm sure. But I feel like baseball has actually done like a really good job, and they've gotten a lot better um, in terms of like social media, like kind of interaction, that kind of stuff. And um, I think I'm not saying they've done the best of like the major four sports, but like they've definitely progressed in the right spot. I'd just be interested to see how the results are in the long term. Now, so the threshold for the luxury tax has already been set for the next 2 years, and it's continuing to go up. It's 208 million next year, and then the year after it's 210 million. So I mean, that's a good sign.
Mm.
And just to be clear, I just want to get this stat out of the way. Um, the team that has paid the most tax in the past few years, unsurprisingly, New York
Yeah,
Yankees.
yeah.
They've paid almost $320 million in tax since 2003,
And they're
and
probably
they've
very happy to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But if you think about it, like that's what like 15 years, 16 years.
Yeah,
Like
16
that's
years.
not a whole lot of money like for the past 16 years.
Yeah, if you put it that way, actually, it's really only like 16 years.
Right, because
I
I mean,
mean,
if you I'm just trying to do some quick math, that's like what, like maybe 15 to 20 million dollars a year.
yeah, like 20, yeah, basically $20 million a year. Yeah. I don't know.
But but if like I do agree, like Major League Baseball does need to address like its in-game attendance problems, but I don't necessarily think the salary, like I don't think if salary cap gets implemented, it's going to be like, oh, that'll put butts in the seats. Like
I don't think
there's
it.
other ways to do that.
I don't think it directly correlates, but I think it has definitely something to do with it. Because like for me, I think it's a trickle down effect. Like if you have a salary cap, it keeps it competitive, and which it, in turn usually puts butts in the seats. But I mean, I will agree in the fact that I think the MLB has done a good job of doing what they can because you know maybe it's not dying, but I think the popularity has definitely decreased from the 90s and early 2000s for sure. In terms of baseball, I think like the new generation is more likely to watch a basketball game than a baseball game. So in that case, I think they have done a good job of doing what they can. It's just I just go back to the competitive thing, and when you got, I mean, I have not watched a Detroit Tigers game this year, but I am sure there's about 500 people in the seats.
Yeah, and I
Um,
will say, well, that brings up another argument, though. I think Major League Baseball's main problem, that has been, and this might just be like a problem in sports overall, but teams for some reason tend to have a fetish with tanking, like
yeah,
nowadays, especially the Miami Marlins.
yeah,
Like I don't understand what the hell they've been doing, but I think that's one of the major problems that people like. So it's like you will get games where, okay, so you'll have teams where it's like the Dodgers, the Braves, the Yankees, where it's like basically every game like it's going to be filled, like every seat. But then it's like if you know your team is tanking, like in a 162 game season, you're not going to go to a single one. You know?
right, right. Well, I mean that's actually another point I had was that um in at least I should say this, preface this. Obviously, being a big hockey fan, I know basically everything about the game. So one of the things I know about a salary cap, but for the other sports, I have an idea of what it is, but I don't know exactly. So I say that
So
because like for hockey, there's a salary cap floor that you can't go under, and I don't know if it's like that for the other sports, but
there is in basketball. I don't know about football though.
yeah, so you can't go under the salary cap floor basically to stop tanking, and that's one of the things that I think is really good because um an example in the NHL was the Ottawa Senators, like a team that's what the fuck was that? A team that looked like, they were trading away all these pieces. Now, yes, they did finish last in the league,
We're a team.
but there were only let's see, there were only 6 points, 7 points in last place, and there was a bunch of teams around them. It wasn't like, there was a team that had 74 points and they had 35. Like it wasn't that situation. So I think a salary cap decreases the chances of that. Uh,
So okay, so I real quick, I just want to ask. So like the other three sports, have a salary cap of like different, different levels. So like hockey, like extreme, like hard salary cap, and then basketball, probably like a medium level salary cap, and then football is another hard one. So
yeah.
I guess it's like of the three sports, like if you could implement one of those three into baseball, what would it be?
As like a salary cap should be there.
Yeah.
I would say
You have $1. Stretch it as far as you like.
probably like a cap like the NBA has it. I think would probably be the best bet. I mean, the other thing about baseball, I mean, there's just 1,000 people. I feel like between like the majors and minors for all the teams, like there just seems like so many players, and I'm not saying like all those players count, but like I just feel like I'm not trying to put like a hard salary cap in MLB, but like at least make it a little bit closer. Now, I like what the NBA does with like the max contracts and stuff like that. Now, I mean, because that allows you to have your superstars or whatever, but it doesn't allow you to be like, okay, here's LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, fucking, Irving. Well, that actually was almost a team. Irving, Embiid, like all these guys on
We're
the
a
same
team.
team. Um, it doesn't allow you to do that. So yeah, I think for baseball, like a medium cap like that would be good. That's my opinion, though.
Okay. I mean that's not a terrible point. I guess so. It's kind of funny in baseball. Like I'm almost um I'm almost kind of anti salary cap for baseball, but it's like I'd like it in the other sports.
Mm,
So another point I want you to think about though is like I think in baseball, so like in the other sports, a lot of what you do or a lot of what your team does falls on the GM, but in baseball, it's all about what falls on the owner, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
So that's another reason why I kind of like not having a salary cap in baseball is because it's like the owners like will kind of get a little bit more of the spotlight. It's like I can't tell you like the amount of times it's like for the past, let's say, since 2013, that Liberty Media, who's the owner of the Braves, which if you haven't heard of them, I'm not surprised, but they basically have like no figurehead. Like they don't have like anyone that like comes in and does like interviews or whatever. It's like basically what Liberty Media does is like it's basically like what they do with the three other sports. It's like they give the G like the GM says like, hey, I'm interested in signing this guy, and then Liberty Media is like, okay, we'll think about it, and then like nothing
Right.
happens.
Right.
But the thing about baseball though is like it has more focus on the owner, which I think could could be used to give more of a critical aspect for the owner, like give him like a little bit more of a spotlight and like I guess criticize the owner a little bit more if that makes sense.
Can I offer a counter to this?
Okay.
Okay. No. Um
Okay.
I guess I'm a little confused by what you're explaining. So you're saying that you think that it's good for baseball to have the focus of the owner since it's kind of about their money that matters for a baseball team and how well they do. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, to an extent, yeah, but I mean, like I mean, there is a bit on the GM though, but I think in baseball it is solely, or not solely, but it is a lot to it has a lot to do with the ownership.
I see, this is where I think I'm gonna disagree here because to me, part of what's amazing about a GM's position in something like hockey or something like that is the kind of moves that they're making, right? Good and bad, right? So I mean, you were saying earlier that you're complaining about the pitching and how a relief pitcher will come out, they'll pitch and let up a single, and then they're changing again. And I mentioned that the GM's or the manager's playing chess. Um, to me, hiring a GM that can, I guess, bring in a set of knowledge and a set of power to better a team with certain circumstances is definitely a lot more entertaining. It makes it a lot easier for someone to be critical of, which is a good thing. I mean, for in a hockey stance, Ron Hextall was a GM for a little while, and he wouldn't fucking release Andrew McDonald and call up Carter Hart, and now look where we are after he was gone. So I guess what I'm saying is, to me, I don't understand why you would want more emphasis on just a guy who's flaunting his money and buying a team. Jeb Bush was going to buy the Marlins at one point. So, like, I don't know why you would ever really want the emphasis on him. It has nothing to do with, disagreeing on politics or any of
Well,
that stuff. But, like, I don't understand why he would need attention just for owning the baseball team just by signing a
well,
check.
well, no. So I'm saying the owner in baseball typically does more than in other sports.
Right, but I think on the same token, they don't necessarily have to lift too many fingers for that though. Because if they have a good payroll coming in, then really all they have to do is, have their scouts or have their coaching staff, management staff come in and say, okay, look, this player looks good, let's pay him. Okay, cool. Here you go. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think it depends too on like how much knowledge an owner has because like if you have a guy that I mean this basically goes hand in hand with what Bobby was saying. Like if you have a guy that knows nothing about the sport, he just bought a team looking to basically to turn a profit or something. And he's got to be the guy that makes the move. Now, I know that a guy wouldn't do that if the light was on him, but like you need professionals in there to be dealing with that stuff, I think, and guys that are so knowledgeable and are the best at what they do. Not a guy who just has money and says, "Oh, look, fucking Clayton Kershaw looks good. We should pick him up."
And I think that's an entertainment quality in of itself, right? I mean, you have a GM who comes in and he's reforming the team in a certain way, and there's always a method to their madness, whether some people want to believe it or not. And a lot of times people are like, fire the GM, fire the GM, and then all of a sudden they're right because a player they traded for turns out to be good. It's an interesting part of the game that I don't think you just get in baseball. You know what I mean? I think the focus should definitely be on a GM whose sole job is to basically make the right moves, make the right plays from a strategic standpoint to make the team better. It's up to the players on whatever they're playing. If it's football on the field, if it's hockey on the ice, to to do their job, right? And the GM also has their job to do, which is to build the best team possible with certain circumstances and make moves when necessary. And I think for, die-hard fans, that's something that they can kind of watch alongside the actual sport being played.
I mean, and going along with that, and I know we kind of touched on this before, but I think having a salary cap also just keeps the league interesting and keeps like free agency interesting because well, it's not a good example for this MLB offseason because it was crazy and there was teams going everywhere. Or players going over rather. But I think if you have a league with a salary cap, you're obviously not going to be able to sign a bunch of these star players. And also a salary cap. One of the biggest things, honestly, the points I have to make on this is that it keeps star players in small markets. Um, that's kind of my biggest, or for the most part, that's kind of my biggest point. Because for a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, right? That's a well, not that the market's small, but it's not like a New York or a Los Angeles or something. And they're a team like that could keep players there, or a team like the let's see in hockey, like the I'm trying to think of like a small market. I mean, the Florida Panthers to some extent. I mean, even though they're having attendance problems of their own, I mean, they have been able to sign good players. Um, and I'm sure living in Florida is a perk, but yeah, they've been able to have good players because other teams can't. Toronto can't snatch up every good player in the league because they make the most money. So yeah, and it forces a salary cap forces teams to make moves, right? If you need to clear $5 million in cap space, you have to make a move to do that. You can't just sit on your hands and be like, oh, well, I have this money and there's no going to be no penalty. I can just sign him. You have you can make moves and a guy is not performing and the MLB. I feel like sometimes they get released and that's one thing, but sometimes they just get buried and it's like whatever, we're just going to get off of our major league team, but we don't want to see your face anymore. And I think in other leagues, I think you have to try to make moves or do something to free up that. So I'm just thinking a salary cap creates just a more competitive environment. It creates a more interesting league, and yeah, that's my biggest thing. I think
I do want to
it's
bring
about
up.
entertainment.
I think I do want to bring up another point though. It's where the players kind of fall in all this. I think it's an interesting thing that baseball players out of all the sports are getting paid the most money. Like Mike Trout with a $400 million
Well,
contract.
yeah, why do you think that is?
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is like so. I'm kind of picking at a straw, but I do. It's been interesting. So we saw in the NFL in the past year these contract holdouts, more specifically Le'Veon Bell, and we talked about it in infinitum for a long time, right? And the whole idea was getting paid, and part of why you're seeing NFL guys do that is because of all the injuries and all the concussion awareness that has been uh getting talked about a lot more over the years, which is great. I'm glad people are finally talking about it and trying to address the problem at hand, trying to make the game safer, so that these guys aren't killing themselves after the game. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
to me, and not that concussions don't happen in baseball, but they definitely happen a lot less than they do in football. And you would think that NFL players would get paid a ton more than baseball players just for the simple fact that they have to recover forever after their man. I mean, you cannot physically go through that many collisions over the course of a lifetime, especially like I don't know, you start playing, let's say high school, all the way through college onto the NFL. That's a lot of wear and tear on the body that I just don't think you necessarily see in baseball. You know what I mean? It's just funny to me. It's really, really funny to me because definitely the injuries and the medical expenses are a lot more expensive on an NFL player than an MLB player.
Yeah, football should like if somebody had never seen football before in their life, they'd think it'd be illegal. I mean, it's like
It
a
is.
train wreck
It
every
is.
play.
It is. It's insane. And I've been on both sides of the fence where on one hand I want to see the game be a little bit safer so that these guys, because the stories are tragic, man. I mean, there's just no question about it anymore. What happens to these guys after they retire, especially those who have had multiple concussions, is scary shit, And um I'm sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought there. Fuck. Hold on, give me 1 second there. I lost
So,
it.
all right. So I just so I another salary cap thing we haven't really brought up, and mainly because I feel like I'm probably the only one really knowledgeable on it is Major League Soccer, and I just want to get your guys' opinion on this. So Major League wow, I can't fucking
What?
talk. League Soccer. They also have a pretty hard salary cap, but there is a way you can go over it. So the league has what is known as designated players, and basically, it basically lets you sign international players by like going over the cap like very easily. And if you can, I think the limit is 3 designated players per team. Um, but the cap is almost like just as soft as baseball in the terms of like think of a team like Atlanta United though. It's like um or they have 3 designated players um and they're doing well, whereas there's some teams without any, and they're also suffering. So it's like I guess with soccer, it is kind of makes things a little bit interesting with their rules, with the designated player rule. Um, but the other sports don't really have something like that. So
I mean, I think soccer's a little bit of an anomaly because of, the ability to loan players off and stuff like that. Um, you don't see that in other sports. To clear, if you're loaning a player out, you're obviously not paying. Well, it depends, I guess, depending on what the other team settles for. How much you're paying in his wages and stuff like that. Um, so I think just because of that aspect, it's a little different. Um, you know, and that's MLS. I mean, obviously, I didn't bring up international soccer because I think that's a whole different animal because there's all these leagues and stuff like that. But I mean, that's another sport that teams can spend wherever they want, literally.
and they don't
Um,
even have a luxury tax.
yeah, there's no penalty for that. That's why you see the same teams a lot. So the Manchester United's, well, they're struggling, but the Man City, PSG, Real Madrid, all those teams, but yeah, soccer's a little bit different just because, like I said, of that. But yeah, no, I do get the point with that though. With the designated players, I it's hard for me it's hard for me to say just because I feel like it's just different and not like the other major sports. But that's just me. So, um, so yeah, that I don't know if you guys had anything else to add, but that is the
There's a
discussion
lot
for
of
me at least.
fucking money in baseball.
Yeah, there really is.
Yeah.
I remember like watching the news when Cole Hamels got signed. I don't
Oh,
remember what
I
the
remember
contract was
that.
at the time, but when Cole Hamels signed with the Phillies, and that was like a ridiculous contract,
Yeah.
and it's just like, and I think we've talked about it on the podcast before. I mean, the best player in hockey right now is making $12.5 million.
Yeah.
That's like, dude, you could be like a bench player making
Yeah.
like twelve and a half
Yeah.
million dollars in the
It's
MLB. Like, you
nuts.
know what I mean?
It's nuts. And I guess I did want to bring up one more point in regards
Hmm.
to some of the competitiveness you were talking about. So from some of I was talking to Brendy and Tyler before we got on the show today, and I was saying how when I was doing some research for the salary cap, I found a site where two guys were debating, and someone brought up the Athletics. Um,
Hmm.
one of the lowest. Are they the lowest, or are they one? Are they the
I don't
lowest
know.
earning team? I forget.
I,
They're what? They're
I,
down there, right?
yeah, I don't know if they are now,
Yeah.
but yeah, for a long time they were the lowest. Yeah.
Yeah. So they kept bringing them up as a shining example of you don't need a salary cap to be competitive because they made the playoffs, and I
Hmm.
feel like that was so short sighted. But I was curious what your thought on this. I think it's a red herring, honestly. Like you can. I'm not gonna say that the Athletics got lucky, but I am gonna say that for the money they had, they got probably as best they could.
Yeah, well, it's a whole. I mean, there's a movie made off of
Yeah,
Moneyball and stuff like that.
literally a whole movie about how this is a problem.
So like, I don't really get. So if the argument is like, does it keep it competitive? I don't think that's necessarily true. Like that was one team that did that and did good and signed these players. Imagine like just imagine like out of the MLB, 6 or 7 teams did that. They go on this approach where, oh, we're gonna try to sign these guys, whatever. Then you got all these other players that are gonna sign to the big guys with all the money, and you're gonna have a goddamn super team. And then you are gonna get blown out of the water. Like that was one team that did it, so it worked because the league was like, I guess, still kind of, it was all competitive, but like I feel like that wouldn't work all over. Like I think you're gonna have teams that are gonna abuse it anyway. Not every team's gonna be like, "Oh, we're gonna just try to save as much money as possible." It's not how it works. Like teams are gonna be like, "We want to win. We're gonna spend money," and I just don't like. That's why I don't think it would work. Um,
I guess my thought is it's like it's not impossible for a team who
no,
doesn't have a low payroll or who does have a low payroll to do good. I don't think any of us here are saying that's not possible because I mean it's happened already, right? I guess the problem always is that the bigger payroll teams in baseball are almost always in the playoff picture at any given point. They have a better chance of making the postseason because of their increased revenue.
yeah,
Whereas, no one expected the Blues this season to win the Stanley Cup. That's how much did that guy make off that bet?
no,
Uh,
I don't
I
remember.
forget. Like it was like something like 125 to 1 or something like that odds.
Yeah, it was
It
something
was something
crazy.
like
Yeah,
that. Like what I'm saying is like you never know who else gonna come out of the woodworks, and that's what makes the game exciting. I fucking blanked on all my playoff picks this year, but I'm fine with seeing some interesting things happen in the sport of hockey. Whereas baseball, you can at least have 4 or 5 or 6 guaranteed spots. Where you're like, okay, I know Boston's gonna be in. I know New York's gonna be in. You know what I mean? It happens mainly every season.
yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, That's what I said. I mean, the Dodgers are.
Yeah.
Oh, they're one of the contenders. They have been for the past couple of years, and you know why that is because they are
Yeah.
paying players handsomely. They got they went out and got Machado, and they got him as a rental, but they were able to go out there and get him, and so because of that. So yeah, I think we're gonna stop that conversation there. I believe that was a really good one. Brendy, what side, like, just to clear it up, because I know what side me and Bobby are on, but what side are you actually on? Like, do you think there should be salary cap in sports or not?
So, well, in sports in general, like I guess my personal preference right now is just maintain the status quo. Like I think what we have right now, it's good and it's working for it's working for like each sport, and like they're finding their own way to get it done.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, like I said, like yeah, it was a really good conversation. We're gonna move on to in case you missed it now, and then afterwards we'll move on to our college athletes discussion, excuse me. But for now, let's move to in case you missed it.
Shit, sorry. Hold on, my thing just exploded. my
Wow.
my thing just fucking exploded. Give me 1 second here.
I gotta
Yeah,
stall.
no, we're good. We're good. All right, here, throw it to me again.
All right, here we go. And now we move to in case you missed it.
All right,
God, that was
boys.
harder to get out than the shit this morning. Holy fuck.
Wow. Okay.
I just
Shit.
fucking can't. I fucking can't.
Okay, so anyway, without any further interruption, so we got some pretty interesting gaming topics today. So, one major sports game that has come out recently that I basically no plans on buying unless Tyler buys for me, is NBA 2K20, and
Okay.
my reasoning for this is that the past like 2 or 3 2K games have probably been the worst in the franchise since its existence. I will say 2K19 actually wasn't too bad, and it looked like 2K was actually going in the right direction. But 2K20 was released, I think, today, so like exactly 7 days ago.
Mhm.
Um, and it seems like they've taken a giant U-turn again. And the game just looks as broken as it was like in 2K17 and 18. And to show you exactly what I'm talking about, I'm kind of hoping Bobby can pull up on
Yeah, I
stream.
got
But
it.
basically, okay, let me compare this to NHL. At least NHL has its own cheese and its own problems, but at least the physics sense. But I want you guys to take a look at this,
The
and it's like,
fuck?
and you got your boy Zion right here. He doesn't seem to really know how to hold a basketball, and it kind of defying gravity a little bit right there.
Christ.
And the thing is, it's like it's not just a physics problem. It's not just a graphics problem. There's people that are like literally playing through like full session games and not getting any experience for their players. Like, I got another Twitter clip to show you guys where they're not getting any 2K points like for their players, and they're not ranking up at all. Tyler, you can look at that one. That's actually the wrong link. My bad.
It's on stream right now. What the fuck?
But as you can see, like they're literally gaining experience for playing. Like they're not getting experience for playing a game. Like they're getting their VC, but they're not like leveling up at all.
The hell?
And I'm not sure if that's a graphics issue or if they're just legitimately like not getting anything.
Let me I'm sorry, just real quick, let me backpedal for our audio listeners. The first GIF that Brendy sent is Zion basically catching a basketball with a defender's arm like intertwined with his, and all of a sudden the basketball just floats in like a 360 formation around his head. Like it really weird. And then the second one he just showed was what appears to be, I guess, an end screen after a game is over, and the player did not get any like additional attributes for his pro. So he basically gained nothing except those coins or whatever currency is in that game.
VC.
So yeah, VC. So you got literally nothing out of that. Continue. Sorry, I just wanted to.
Right, and I was just gonna say there is also one more clip where it looks like it's a little bit hard to describe. Might need some audio help for this one as well, but basically, there's this guy that's getting double teamed, and like the opponents are having like the most like impossible time like trying to defend him, and he almost makes like a nearly impossible shot like seem like effortless. And it's stuff like that like is making me refuse to buy 2K. And
That's a
Tyler,
fucking
like,
travel too.
Yeah,
What the fuck?
yeah,
That's what I was gonna say.
That's a fucking travel.
yeah,
So
it
let me.
looked like it looked like there may have been a double dribble in there
Yeah.
as well.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, you can argue, oh, he touched the ball so he can dribble again, but no. Regardless, it's a fucking travel. So let me, for audio listeners, let me just give you the play-by-play. Okay, so you have a player dribbling the ball. He's right a little bit past the arc near the foul line. He's dribbling. Two guys post. He passes to his teammate who runs up right next to him, basically at the center foul line. Two guys double team him. They're basically both just reaching for the ball. So there's a couple of fouls probably in there too. And he's doing, yeah, he jumps up in the air and just leaps over to the other side. Like, what the hell am I looking at? He basically just leaps into the paint, right? He has not dribbled the ball. And he's like, takes like 3 steps. He does like, he's just kind of ripping the ball kind of back and forth, back and forth. He's still getting double teamed here. And he's, he kind of brings it to his stomach, does a step, and then just dribbles back and just does just the stupidest looking shot I could see from the paint. Like he just kind of fades away and just kind of over arcs it into the basket. It's ridiculous.
Right. And one of the reasons why we rag NHL so much is because like we actually have that video. But I am like, and it like 2K has repeatedly like put out trash games, or not trash games, but it's put out a trash NBA game every single year. And they have probably the most dedicated fan base, like except for maybe FIFA, of like any of like the major sports games.
Yeah, it's FIFA. It's FIFA and 2K, and it's not even close.
Right. But the thing about 2K is like they know there's no competition. Like there's NBA Live, which I actually think is I actually think the game is improving a little bit. But the thing about 2K is like they have the same exact problems every year, and like certain problems even get worse. So it's like, let me ask a person like Tyler, why the hell do you get 2K every single year?
I don't get, so 2K is the one sports game I don't get every single year. I happen to get last year's game. um, but I don't know. I just what really happens, and this will go like this is kind of a perfect segue for later, but I end up watching college basketball, and I really want to play a college basketball game, but there's no college basketball game, so I got to play NBA. Like it's kind of one of those situations. And I do like watching basketball from time to time. For the most part, one of the other things that draws me to it is my career and the cutscenes and all like that. The story, like that was the other thing for me. But this year I'm not getting it. I don't have any intention on getting it, and there's definitely glitch. Like there's definitely a lot of gameplay things that I wasn't a fan of. I don't think it's trash. I think there's improvements that definitely need to be made, like any game. Um, but I mean, the thing with them is, yeah, you're right. They don't have any competition really, so they can put out any game they want and be fine. But yeah, for me, I think it's not the worst thing in the world, but yeah, definitely some improvements need to be made.
Well, I don't understand. It's like there's also other problems like with the gameplay. It's like, so do you have 2K20 and do you plan on getting it? If you
No, I don't have it, and I'm not getting it.
Okay, and is it like for the reasons that I've mentioned?
No, it's just that I don't really want it this year. I have other things I need to buy and save up my money.
Right, and I've heard another problem, and I'm trying to move. I'm going to try to move on quickly. Another problem I've heard is like the my career like story is like just god awful every single year.
It's gotten
Like
worse,
they
yeah.
basically like either try to make it a love story or like they try to make your person like a whiny bitch. Um, from what I've heard. Um, like, am I wrong?
No, I will say like they've definitely made it worse. Like I remember NBA 2K14 was my favorite story, and like it was simple and was good. Now they like have characters that are just annoying as shit, and like like I said, I like the aspect of like making decisions um can hinder your career or excel them, whatever. But yeah, no, I agree. The story has gotten worse.
All right. Well, on that happy note, let's move on.
NBA
So,
Street 2 is the best basketball game ever made, and it wasn't even fucking close.
Oh yeah, that was a great game.
all right. So, I'm trying to decide which story I want to do first. So okay. So I'm gonna ask you guys straight. Have you guys ever played a video game and just had a very like creepy slash awkward experience with another gamer, like online?
Uh,
Uh, I want. I've made other people like I've put on how do I say this? I've made myself. I put on a different face and made it awkward. I guess I'll explain if you need me to, because I know that was my
awkward or like creepy?
both.
So yeah, so either.
Okay.
So
Go ahead,
Hang
Ty.
on,
I'm
let me.
Ty.
thinking. No, go
Okay, go
ahead,
ahead.
Ty. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, a while ago, me, Zach, and another friend of ours was playing GTA, and we met a random person on there, and basically I claimed that I was gay for Zach.
Oh,
Um,
I remember that.
yeah, and so I've done something like that, but I've never something nobody's never made it like weird toward me. I just do
Okay.
it like to be funny.
Okay, so let me read you a couple stories that I've got from Reddit here.
Okay.
Um, so I'll just read like two stories. They're pretty short, but I think they might they have a pretty creep factor to it. Okay,
I think I read this one.
so this story says, when I was playing Minecraft with some friends, I offhandedly mentioned that I was hungry. One guy I didn't know, but who seemed relatively normal at the time, said, "A pizza is on its way to your house." I immediately checked back in chat because I did not remember typing up my address, let alone give it to someone I didn't know personally. I acted normal and kept playing, but 30 minutes later, a pizza arrived at my door, already paid for.
That's
I immediately
that's
told my
awesome.
friends to watch out since he had somehow gotten my address. I have not heard or spoken to him in a couple years.
Yeah, it's
So
probably
a
for
little
the
creepy, a
best.
little generous.
It's okay. It's definitely creepy, but like, I feel like the guy did it not with like the intention of being generous, but it definitely comes off creepy. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was such a fucking like power creepy move. I don't even know what the fuck that was.
And and then one more I just want to mention briefly. This is just a really short one. It said one time one time I was playing PUBG. I heard gunshots, but it didn't sound like it was coming from in game. And then I heard a couple dudes arguing, then silence. And then I saw two dudes standing next to each other and killed them both. So so it sounds like these two guys got in a gunfight in real life.
That's what it sounds like. That's how I was taking that. Jeez.
That he didn't call the cops and he didn't know where to even start. And he was apparently the person that heard it was only like 14. And he was only, and he said the only reason he was mad was because he heard loud noises.
God, I'll say that I don't recall having any like creepy experiences, but I definitely had some interesting interactions with people in MW2 lobbies. Infamous. I remember one dude specifically. I swear, he was. You'll know exactly what I mean when I say this. He was the god of the lobby because he was the only one with a deep voice. That's literally the only reason. So it was him and like a bunch of these two or three like squeakers. He had like an army of squeakers like with him partying up and playing a game. And I remember it was I forget, I think it was like domination or something like that. And I remember he was just yelling at everything for just like no reason. And then at one point, like I was wearing a headset and I was in game chat for some weird reason that day. I was like, I think I said something like, "Man, dude, like pipe down, Christ." And he's like, "No, fuck you, fuck you! I swear to God, I'm gonna come to your house and fuck your mother so hard she's gonna be walking sideways." And I'm just sitting there like, "Fuck me, jeez." All right, fine, muted. Christ.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, there's. I feel like I say this for a lot of things, but there's always like this meme, I guess, going around with that. Like, you couldn't survive an Xbox 360 party.
The
or,
video
like,
on
game
YouTube is
chat.
great. Everyone is just calling each other, gay slurs.
Yeah,
And
but like it's true that like people are calling like people bottles of cum. Like it was
yeah.
like I don't
Oh my
know what was
God.
going on, but like it's true. Like you could not sit through that.
I
And,
will hate forever the you mad? You mad? You mad? You
Yeah.
mad? I hate it. It's like, no, I wasn't mad, honestly. I was just saying how I disagree with you or I didn't like what you did, and now you're just pissing me off because you're being an annoying little sack of shit. But I guess that's neither here nor there for you, huh?
Yeah.
Fuck hell.
So I just want to move on, and of course we gotta end in case you missed it. With some trivia and just
Fuck yes.
And I just want to be clear about. I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't done this one yet. Just to be clear, though, this specific list is actually voted on by fans. It's not like official.
Okay.
So,
by the way, shout out your
shout out to ranker.com. They give me all of my lists that I use for
Sponsor us, give us money. We want to do this. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so this is just to be clear before I quiz you guys. This is community/fan votes. This particular list.
Okay.
So the topic is the best video game. Wait, that's not the right one. Okay.
Christ.
The topic is the best video games of all time.
Oh.
And it's actually a top 100 list, but we don't have time for that. So
Am I crazy? Did we do this last week?
So
we did
we did a couple weeks ago. We did the most popular games of right now.
Now, this is what scares me though about this being like a community fan vote is that I think I should know some of these answers, but because it's voted on by I'm assuming modern fans, I might be wrong.
Right. So I briefly looked at the list, and I mean I'm looking at it right now, obviously, but like most of the games that um that are on the games that are in the top 10, I feel like for the most part like would be in like an official top 10 anyway. So
Okay.
like I think the fans actually did a good job on this one.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start with Bobby. So you got top 10 best video games of all time
Okay.
in terms of entertainment, playability, whatever you want, just the best. What you got?
Goldeneye.
Congratulations, you've already lost.
How? That's literally it. That see, this is what I'm talking about. That game is considered one of the greatest games ever created. Like, no joke. Like on all the official lists.
I want you to think about every single video game that's ever been created.
Oh, geez.
And if I were to like just give you the top 10 right now, like you would understand why GoldenEye is not on there.
Bro, I don't have an idea.
So then they have to be like all retro games, then whatever.
I'll say like there's not any like classic like arcade games. Like there's not like Donkey Kong on here.
This
or
list already
Pac-Man.
fucking sucks. Tyler, go ahead.
Do you want a lifeline, Bobby?
No.
Okay, what do you want, Ty?
I'm trying to think, like, so you have to think of like what audience is going to be on the site, number one, and number two, like what game reached the most audiences. So like the first thing that comes to mind is like Grand Theft Auto. So I'll say like GTA 4.
So doing a quick glance, the highest Grand Theft Auto is actually Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and it's not in the top 10.
Okay.
Oof.
All right, I'm still alive, baby.
Yes. So, all right, I'm gonna give you another try, Bobby.
Yeah. All right.
And just so you know, GoldenEye was number 21.
That is such horseshit. Okay. I'm gonna say Minecraft.
All right, maybe this was a bad list.
How? Like really? Like
Well, actually, for Minecraft, I feel like there's a lot of people that love it, but a lot of people that won't give it a chance because they feel like it's a nerd game.
it's exploded recently though, and honestly, just from a fan standpoint, you would think that just the cultural impact that game has had should just put it up there by itself. Answer me this one fucking question: is Fortnite in that top 10?
No, it is not.
All right.
I can't even find Fortnite yet.
I was about to say, if Fortnite is in that top 10, I am literally flying down there and kicking your ass because that list is fucking garbo.
Okay, I'll give you one more try, Tyler, and if not, I'll give you guys the top 10.
Jesus.
So I'll say this: I know nothing about this game, but I know a lot of people that like it. So The Legend of Zelda. I don't even know if it's a game or a series. I have no fucking idea.
Yeah.
So
they gotta be there.
Yeah, so Legend of Zelda actually has 2 games in the top 10. It has Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, Ocarina of Time is a fantastic game. I mean, that's not even
right. And so yeah, Ocarina of Time's number 1, by the way, and Link to the Past is number 6.
And then the only other like series I could think of is like the Mario series. But
there's a lot of Mario games, but
that's what I'm saying. I couldn't even like maybe Mario 64 or something.
Yeah, it's gotta be the Super Mario Bros.
So
where is NHL 94?
So I'll go ahead and give you guys the top 10. So number 2 is Skyrim. I don't think that's surprising.
No, that's not.
And then number 3, Tyler, is Super Mario Bros. 3.
Okay.
3. Okay.
Yeah, 3 is kind of like where I guess kind of like jump started into the modern era, I suppose.
Sure.
Number 4, Super Mario World. Number 5, Super Mario 64.
Okay,
and then Link to the Past is number 6, like I said. Number 7, this is going to be a little surprising. The original Red Dead.
Wow.
Really? That beat out Minecraft and GoldenEye and wow, really?
I mean, great
game, but really?
So I'm a little surprised at that too, but I don't know. Okay, and then
God.
Well, maybe not at 7. Maybe at
top 10. No.
Okay, so number 8, unsurprisingly, Final Fantasy 7.
Sure. Yes.
Number 9 might be kind of surprising, maybe not. The Last of Us.
I have not played the game, but I have heard fantastic things about the game. So I'm actually not surprised. I guess. Hold on, sorry, I'm trying to pick something up. I guess what I'm more surprised about is that game is not very old, like at all. Like it's
Yeah, it came
really
out.
not that old.
It came out in 2013, and I remember like it was super hyped when it came.
Oh yeah, and
came
lived up
out.
to it. So
And then number 10, you guys might find this surprising, but I don't. Number 10 is Chrono Trigger.
Oh, okay.
why?
Yeah, I would never get that.
It's one of those I guess classic 90s games that if you grew up with, it's one of your favorite. It's like Pokemon in a way,
It's also like GoldenEye. That didn't make the fucking list.
Well, fair. That is fair. But
Okay.
anyway,
Okay. That's
so
an interesting top 10.
But yeah, that's it for that one. I'll try to find a better one next time. I thought you guys would be better at it though, but
That list
continue
is
on.
fucking janked.
Continue on.
Okay. I'm a little hurt by that comment that we were bad at that. I mean, look at that list. Come on.
Okay, I thought you could have gotten at least like 2.
I swear to God, I thought GoldenEye was a surefire because it's in like everybody's top 10. Like everybody who's been playing video games forever has GoldenEye in their top 10.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Hang on, I got to do some research. So continue on with the next topic.
Anyway, we are gonna move on to our second topic here. Should college athletes be paid? One of the hot topics, hot debates, I should say, in the past few years, and you know, something that recently has actually come to light again because of some laws that are, being passed and potentially being passed and stuff like that. So we will get onto that. As I I can't even say this straight with a straight face. Bobby has a little presentation um for this segment that he will
Okay.
put up. He's got a little PowerPoint. I can't even say it with a straight
Oh my
face.
fucking God, I can't.
So
I
Bobby's
fucking
Bobby's
can't.
got a PowerPoint.
I have a PowerPoint. I want to be extra about this. Okay, so no, I'm not. This isn't for the whole argument. I had a little bit of experience with this topic already because of a class I took 2 years ago in college. And yes, you will notice if you look on the stream that I didn't even put the NCAA when it was established. When I was typing it, I wanted to put it, but didn't go back and finish the year. So I just have 4 X's. It was established in 40 in Roman numerals. But there are a couple stats, and there is something I wanted to bring up. They deal with the NCAA deals with 1,117 colleges and universities, 3 athletic divisions, 100 athletic conferences, and 40 affiliated sports organizations. And they have specific guidance policies regarding student athletes and their status. More specifically, how they use that status outside of the game. And I did just want to show that real quick, just because I'm literally not going to go through this whole thing because it's going to be a story that I talk about in a second anyway. And the rest of it has something because I had to relate it back to what we were talking about in class. But I just wanted to be extra about it because I was doing the research and I was like, holy shit, where's that PowerPoint? And I dug through and found it. So there's that.
I just gotta say why it's so fun. I mean, well, I should also say, yeah, good thing you clarified. Like, if people would have thought you made it for this, like,
No,
that
no,
is
no,
so
no.
fucking accurate. Yeah.
No, no,
But
no.
I didn't know about this, and he just messaged me and goes, Tyler, I have a PowerPoint, and now I keep looking at it now, and it's just funny to me. 'Cause I had no idea. All
God.
right, so yeah, like I said, big debate. Let's just get right into it. So, I'm gonna start off and say that I am on the side of I think college athletes should be paid. I think it's there. I think either side of the fence you're on, I think there's gonna be pros and cons for both sides. Like this is not an argument where you can just say okay, like one side's definitely better or not. Like this was there's a lot to lose and a lot to win from both sides. So um for me, like I said, I am on the side that they should be getting paid. Um, I guess starting off with one of the points I had, um, college is for somebody that is not is first of all is in a community college, and second is not doing sports, like just that alone and having classes, having 5 classes a semester or something like that is a lot. It's a lot of work. Imagine having playing a sport where you could potentially be trying to go pro in. Um, that's a lot of fucking time. That there's only 24 hours in a day. There's just not enough hours in the day. I feel like.
Mhm.
It's just it's a big stress. I feel like for
Oh,
players. Who did we lose? Oh, we
please.
lost Brendy.
Excuse us, we lost. We're gonna continue the show, but we did just Brendy appeared to have disconnected for some reason. Hopefully, we can get him back soon. But just in case you don't hear him, that's why. But we're gonna continue on here. Sorry.
I think he lost his
Oh, he's
Oh
back.
no,
Yep.
there
Yeah,
he
he
is.
is. There he is.
Um,
Oh, look at the little fucker.
uh, but yeah, I think it's just something that it's how can you focus on your academics if you have it's just I feel like it's hard to focus on your academics and sports, like it's just too much. That's
I
me. And
There's a whole dark side, and before we start, I want to give everybody a after show watch suggestion. John Oliver does a show on HBO called Last Week Tonight, a comedy news show. He talks about serious shit. Don't get me wrong, but the whole thing is he makes fun of it too. So he did one on the NCAA and student athletes and all that stuff. So and he brings up a lot of good sources and big interviews and stuff like that. Is definitely a lot more detailed than we can definitely ever go into.
Mhm.
And he did it very well. So besides that, and I'm gonna bring up some stuff that he talked about in his show. And that's actually one of the points you hit, Ty. Um, so what according to what they were talking about on the show in a couple of the interviews, is they were talking to somebody who got I forget his name. He got a scholarship to play football at a certain university, right? To play football. I'm not sure if it was full or not, but he got a scholarship, right? So he goes there and plays football. He would be just put in classes that just meant absolutely fucking nothing. Like
Right.
it was like some. So he said he took a language class, and I forget what language it was, but it was like it was a language that's definitely not common. Like it's not English, it's not Spanish, it's not French, German, Latin, any of those. It's like this third world country's language that I don't even remember what it was called. And he's like, I've never used it a day in my life, but that's what class we took so I could get the credits and keep my academic uh uh status so I don't get disqualified from the team. So there's a whole other dark side to that. And I think what you're hitting on is the main reason. And just for the record, before we begin this, I'm on the fence with this whole thing. I have a trouble picking a side in either of this. And I'll explain in a second. But to your point, that's the thing, right? There are people in pretty bad financial situations, right? Um, so let's say somebody gets into a college, right? Take a leap, go into college, but they're gonna end up with a ton of debt. Trust me, I know what that is. Um, you, they have to work while they're playing, while they're playing football or whatever sport they're playing, and go to school and do well in all their classes, right? So they can pay for school and be there, right? They're just like you said, not enough hours in a day to do all that, right? So that I can see as a reason to pay student athletes because it's such a big time commitment, and you don't have to pay them. And I'm sure we're gonna get into this in a second, but the main thing I want to hit on is that I don't want to give college kids $1 million a year. Like I'm not saying
Well,
let's
yeah.
pay them start millions of dollars. Like I don't really even want to pay them that much for what a typical full time gig is. You know what I mean? Because I just don't believe in that because then that's gonna turn college sports upside down. Like that's bad. But there should be at least something, even if it's like a fucking like hourly wage or something to just pay everybody because of the time they commit, especially in D1, right? For D2 and D3, it gets uh a little bit more complicated, and that's where I'm struggling to kind of to get that all together. There's so many universities and colleges under the NCAA that I can't really blame them for defending that position to that point because there's so many of them. There's so much. It's insane. It's literally insane. So it's a lot, dude. And I haven't played sports in college, but I haven't played high school. Even in high school, I was struggling. Like even though practice was 3 hours every day, and then game days were maybe 4 plus travel time. Like I would just be physically beat and mentally beat when I got home. Like it was hard to have to do like a bigger project that I needed to do, or do just regular homework just because I was just so beat. I went hard, man. I played hard. You know what I
I
mean? And
think,
these college athletes have it even worse because they have to travel too. Like I know my school's a
yeah.
D3 school, and they're traveling to they're right outside of Baltimore in Maryland, and they're traveling to places like Gettysburg, or driving all the way down to Virginia. They're driving all over the place for tournaments and games and just regular season games and stuff like that. Like travel time takes a hit on you too, man. I mean, geez.
And then going along with that, like, if these guys aren't getting paid, they have to get a job. And with what time are they going to get a job?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And a job
a
that's
lot,
actually going to pay them a decent enough wage to
yeah.
support themselves.
A lot of the college athletes, for the I don't want to I don't want to put a minority or somebody or anything, but like there is a lot of players that come from tough homes and these urban homes, and it's they might not have the financial um, ability to you know put players in these colleges or whatever. A kid might have the talent but can't go to Georgia because it's too much money or something like that. um I think now I get that there's scholarships and stuff like that, but not there's not every player gets a scholarship. What happens to the walk-ons? Now some of them do really well and they end up getting a scholarship, but you have these guys that are walk-ons and they're putting their heart and soul into it and they're taking these classes, and then you want them to like they basically have to get a job at that point. Like what money would they have? I just feel like there's just not that's a lot. Like that's a lot of stress. I think you pay athletes I don't know how to put this, but I like the first thing that came to mind is like they're healthier, like they become healthier, like like as a mindset, I guess. Um, there's not all the stress on them. Like, but the other thing is too, like you said about the classes, like, do you think like Trevor Lawrence or like Tua or like any of the top NFL prospects are, taking serious classes? Like, they're probably taking like an African language class. Like,
Yeah.
come on,
No, you
it's
and in a way, if you know you're good, it's kind of a smart move, right? If you make millions in the NFL, you make it, and you don't really need to do anything afterwards. You don't need to become a commentator. You don't need to become a coach. A lot do, but you don't need to do that, right? Because then at the same time, you can just pay somebody to handle your money. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, and man, would they be useful? You know,
Yeah,
and I guess, and this is where I'm going to kind of disagree with the whole scholarship thing. I think they're a lot more valuable than you think, right? Um,
I get that, but
yeah, like
yeah,
so let's take now listen, before I say anything, I understand I am in a pretty privileged situation compared to, other people, right? I am fully aware of this, and I also do not play college sports. I dedicated my college career to my major, right? And that was just my decision. And nor did I think I was going to be good enough for basketball or hockey, which would have been the two sports I would have tried out for. But that's a whole nother thing. Anyway, um, so I will probably be coming out of school when I graduate, and I graduate in May. I will probably be coming out with somewhere in the range of about $150,000 worth of debt for my student loans, right? So I was approved for loans and by the government, given the money that paid for my schooling, right? And I will have to pay that back starting in November. That'll be when I have to start paying back my loans. I do not know what the minimum payments are. Now, the scholarship, or I'm sorry, the loans have not affected me yet. And I like, I the only money I work with is whatever's in my bank account and whatever is getting in there from my job that I work that I work with at school, right? That's all I have to worry about. But what is going to suck is when I get closer to May, and if I don't have a job lined up, I'm in trouble because I'm going to have to start paying those loans off in November, and if I don't have the money to do that, I'm in some serious trouble. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of money to be dealing with. It's a lot of money, a lot of money. I am not making millions of dollars in the field that I'm in. It's just not going to happen. So I guess what I'm saying is I can definitely see, like, if you sign a student to a full scholarship, fully paid everything, I still think that goes a long way, and I would say that counts. The only thing because at least for my loans, at least for my school, right? The loans also include, like, room and board, and includes a meal plan. I can, go get food really at any point during the day. I'm sure the bigger schools or even have like 24-hour like cafeterias and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like they'd be without food and a place to stay and everything else. You can argue that, other expenses come into play. Maybe somebody's paying for a car. In my situation, I'm not, paying for really anything else. And it's really not my business what other people are paying for. But what I am saying is that, like, if you get a full scholarship, paid off, that's a lot of money too. It's a lot of money. It's probably more than how much college athletes should be getting paid most of the time, because that's basically $150,000, $200,000 check. That's basically what that is.
Yeah, like, and I'm not downplaying scholarships, but I just feel like, there's stuff that scholarships aren't going to cover, and you kind
Right.
of mentioned it, like a car, your phone bill, your
Yeah. Phone
car,
bill.
gas,
Just other living expenses, and I know there are
yeah.
others. I will say, I guess my point is, and I'm not trying to discount those other or forget about those. I'm just saying that most of your basic needs are kind of met through your student loans if you're able to get one, and get into room and board, have a bed to sleep on, I have food to eat, all that good stuff. Sorry, I'm like half choking at the moment, so just excuse
I,
me a second. Go ahead.
no, you're fine. Yeah, yeah, there's those other living expenses, and like I said, I just don't know. Like, I struggle sometimes with having enough time in the day, and I'm not nearly as busy as these
Oh,
guys. And um, it's a lot. Like,
yeah,
it's a lot for me, and that's kind of my biggest thing. Also, I mean, I just think that, as I kind of said before, like, some athletes are coming from homes that maybe can't support them. You give the athletes money, takes the burden off the families, and they're not shelling out all this money to
mm,
possibly. And I'm not talking, obviously guys that get scholarships is, different, but you're not. Sometimes it's not all about the big
yeah,
schools, and that's where the tough part is for me. Also, there's a lot of fucking corruption in the NCAA.
yeah.
Like, we've heard the stories. Um, excuse me. The biggest one that or I should say, the first one that comes to my head is the Arizona State, or excuse me, Arizona University of Arizona basketball team. I think 2 years ago now, it's when they had who became the
Oh
number
yeah, what
one
was
pick in the
that?
draft, DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah,
It reported that he got essentially like 100K under the table,
yeah,
and stuff like that. There's a lot of that going on, and you get universities all over the country are getting these huge penalties because of shit like that all the time.
yeah,
Um, so paying players takes a lot out of that. I believe that that's the other big thing. I mean, there's just I'll be honest. I think there's probably more corruption than there's even talked about. Like, I'm
yeah.
sure there's so much being hid. Um, I'm not. I hate to do this, but like, I feel like Duke basketball's got to be doing something there. Like, I know they're a successful
Uh oh, we're
program,
going
but
with the
like,
conspiracy theories now.
no, but like, how do they continually? How do all these colleges continually to do this? And like, I get
Well,
they have better facilities, and there's a bunch of different things, but there's got to be some situations where there's something going on. I'm not saying giving a guy $100,000, but like, stuff that's definitely breaking the rules, even if it's very minor.
I mean, you could also argue that, let's look at college football, where Arizona and Clemson have been the fucking top two teams for how many years now?
Arizona, huh?
Huh? I'm sorry, Alabama. You said Arizona. It threw me off. Sorry, Alabama. My bad. Alabama and Clemson
Clemson,
are,
yeah.
yeah, are the top two teams, right? And that's been that way for quite a few years now, right? You could also argue that, someone coming in could look at Alabama and Clemson and be like, well, shit. I mean, I'm almost guaranteed a national championship if I go to either of these two schools, so I'm going to go to them. And it'd probably be a harder sell to go to lower, possibly unseeded teams. People still do. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the, top star high school recruits are going to either one of those two teams, or at least someone in the running, kind of dark horse picks. I don't know, Michigan, Georgia, Michigan State, Ohio State, those kind of guys. You know what I mean? So you could argue that too, if we're gonna start bringing up stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I get that. I don't know. It just like
Yeah.
part of me thinks they're just like it seems like every year there's some investigation in the NCAA about something happening wherever it is, and it's just because of these rules. Um, I
I
don't know.
I did want to touch on a case study that I've definitely mentioned 100 times before.
Mhm.
But it is the most relevant in this situation, right? So the report, that the PowerPoint I pulled up was actually a report on Donald De La Haye. If you're not familiar with him, this was what, 2 or 3 years ago now. He was
Yeah.
a kicker for the University of Central Florida, which is a NCAA Division I school. He was a kicker, right? He also on the side did YouTube. Now he gained a pretty decent following, and the videos depicted him, some stuff during practice, like not, and I say during practice, not like showing like plays, but like, oh, he's hanging out with his teammates, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like kind of like day in the life type stuff, without like giving any information away that would compromise the team. Like he didn't pull an Antonio Brown where he recorded himself in the locker room while Tomlin was giving a speech, kind of thing. He didn't do any of that, right? It was just more like, hey, look, this is what it's like to be a student athlete, right? And he amassed a pretty decent following. He became active on YouTube, and he was eligible for monetization. NCAA attacked him. The NCAA basically said you are not allowed as a student athlete make money off your stats, and this is where I have a problem mainly.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest points.
Yeah, this is where I have a problem. We can argue all day about paying players directly. Here's where my issue lies, and this to me is just pure greed, and I really don't understand this decision at all. So they basically told De La Haye that he had a choice. He could either continue playing football for the University of Central Florida, but he would have to shut down his YouTube channel, or he continues his YouTube channel and earns money off of it, and he would have to leave the team. So he made the difficult decision to quit the University of Central Florida football team and continue his YouTube career, because he he loved football and he still makes football videos. And from my understanding, he joined a professional team, not in the NFL but somewhere else, and is playing CFL. He joined a team and he's doing pretty well for himself. But he cited that, like, look, my career as an entertainer is where I belong, and he had to leave the football team because of this. And this is where I'm just so confused. I can say with the absolute utmost certainty that if I were a little younger when this story broke and maybe thinking about playing sports in college, and if I still had the aspirations of going pro in the NHL, which I did have at one point. I know he's not an NHL player, or a hockey player for that matter, but that was my dream then. But let's just say for this sake that I was thinking about going to college, playing football, and possibly going to the NFL, right? Sounds crazy for someone like me, but fuck it. That's what I wanted to do, right? I see a video by Donald De La Haye, and the video depicts what he does on a normal day as a student athlete. I can't picture a single negative about looking at this as a viewer, right? I'm probably sitting there like, this shit is cool. I want to be like this guy, right? I mean, look, he's doing it all. He's playing for a football team. He's doing his studies. He's working hard. He's doing good for himself. Why wouldn't I want to be that guy? And this is where I'm confused with the NCAA. Why wouldn't the NCAA let this happen? Because now I'm about to be part of your system, NCAA. Like, I'm literally going to probably go try and work harder so I can be in college and play football now. And I'll be a part of your system. I'll make you all the money you want. For God's sake. Yeah. That's where I don't get. Like, you're not going to pay these players. And a lot of these players who are maybe not stars, or maybe don't have a scholarship, and why can't they just be entrepreneurs and market themselves? That's what I don't get here. It really, this doesn't make any sense to me. And again, like I said, I cannot stress this enough. he wasn't leaking anything about like the team and what plays they're running. He just was making a video about what he does, and that shit's awesome. I love that type of content. What does an athlete do in a normal day? Like a professional athlete, what does a college athlete do? And for me, since I'm a film and moving image major at my college, right? What does this certain director do? You know, in a typical day, like what's their morning routine? Like what do they do? That shit's awesome. I love that type of stuff because to me, it's like, and Ty, we've talked about this over and over again in the NHL where, you know, the players and interviews are always giving cookie cutter responses. It's nice to peel back the curtain and see what is actually, who you're actually cheering for on a more personal level. And that goes for college. I mean, college sports has as huge of a fan base as professional sports itself. You know what I mean? Everybody from alums of the university to, you know, just people who are local to the university picking up the you know, as part of the fan base. It has a huge fan base. You know, you root for the players that are on the field, right? And especially since you don't have them forever. You have them for 5 years tops most of the time. And then the star players probably get out in 2. So I guess what I'm saying is, and that's the part I just don't get. So you're not going to pay these guys, but you're not going to let them make money for themselves. For themselves. No one is going out there and just typing in, I'm an NCAA athlete, pay me. De La Haye was putting in legitimate effort and quality into his videos, and they had an extra boost because he was an NCAA athlete. And that requires hard work too. He's not just making a YouTube video that's 5 seconds long and said, yo, I'm De La Haye, I'm an athlete, and he's making ad revenue, right? Like, that's not what he's doing. He's making quality content that just so happens to be centered around what he does as a student athlete. I don't know why the NCAA would ever strike that down. That to me is pure greed. Not to mention, and again, please go watch the John Oliver video because it brings up a lot of great points about this and numbers that I just don't have at the moment. They make billions off of these guys and girls. Like it's ridiculous. They make so much fucking money off of them, right? It's insane. We can, like I said, we can agree, disagree about paying the players directly. Like I've said before, I'm on the fence, but to me, this is where I'm pissed off is that like they can't, you know, they can't market themselves as just a person or an entertainer, you know, if they're a student athlete. That's just what doesn't make any sense to me. I do want to note also, so while I was giving this presentation to my class 2 years ago, I distinctly remember talking to my friends. Now, again, I'm in a D3 school, you know, has decent sports programs. We were lacrosse champions a couple of years ago in the NCAA. You know, so there's a ton of athletes. So of course I was in a communications class, so there was quite a few athletes in my class. And after I was over, the professor would kind of talk and kind of continue the conversation of what I was just talking about. And I remember at one point she was talking about it and she's like, "Oh, well, you know, I also, from my understanding, heard that you know, NCAA players get like a food stipend when they're traveling to get food and stuff like that. Is that correct?" And you saw all the athletes in the room start shaking their heads like, nope, we get literally nothing. Now, again, this is D3, so I kind of understand, you know, like arguably the lowest level of it all. But I digress. I just, that to me, the whole representation thing and not being able to sell yourself as a person, and not for nothing, that's real world experience, especially, you know, for someone who's in the film industry, right? My whole career depends on how well I market and competitive I am. That's what I have to do. So why can't somebody who competes in the NCAA market themselves to try and hell, that's business experience right there. You know what I mean? For someone who's going to be taking an African language class that they're never going to use, you might as well throw them out into the fire and just say, hey, figure it out.
Yeah.
That's what I don't get.
I think as if you're on the side of college athletes should be paid, I think this is one of your biggest points is that the NCAA can make money off of players, but players can't make money off their likeness. That's probably the biggest side. Now, kind of going to your whole point with Donald De La Haye is that, and this is gonna sound like I'm going off topic, but I will bring it back. There's just somebody I found on YouTube. He's a former baseball player called Matt Antonelli,
I know he is. Yeah.
and he talks all the time about his experiences in the MLB. And of course, I'm not an MLB player, and like listening to these stories, you know, I would have never imagined, whatever happens or this, this he's talking about, how they're treated in the MLB and stuff like that, and I would have never thought that. Um, Same thing with college football, like in De La Haye's case. Like I have no fucking clue. Like I guess okay, I get the extent of what's happening, but I'm sure there's a lot more going on. It's cool that he did something like that.
Yeah.
Another YouTube channel I watch is called GM Golf. He's a someone maybe a little younger than us, really good golfer, and he has a girlfriend that also golfs. And I don't know what college she goes to, but she's in the NCAA golf. So she's not allowed in any videos. Not only of her just golfing, but of her literally just being in the video. She's not allowed to,
That's
because of
such fucking
NCAA.
bullshit because then it has
Yeah,
literally nothing to do with her being a student athlete at that
yeah.
point. Like you don't even have to
So
say it.
like it's really dumb.
Yeah.
And she's really good, and obviously I guess if you're showing her playing, I mean that's one thing, but yeah, I mean, she literally can't even make an appearance. So I think that's really the biggest thing is that you have, the NCAA is making so much goddamn money on on players, but they can't make a dime. That's my biggest thing, and why I really hate it. But
This part strikes this is the whole thing that in this entire argument that strikes a nerve with me is the fact that
yeah,
like if you're not going to pay college athletes fine like I said and we can go to the pros of not paying them like yeah it probably prevents you know high school high school students from going to possibly bigger schools that have more money, that kind of thing. And we can argue that all day, but at least give the athletes the opportunity to market themselves. Like that's literally I will settle on that. And I'm not even, and like I said, I'm not an athlete, so I can't speak for everybody. And what I definitely should do is see if I can find a student athlete at my school who can sit down and uh talk about how they go through. I would love to hear actually like how they kind of deal with all the time constraints and not being paid and all that kind of stuff. So that might be something I'd be able to do. But in the meantime, I don't understand the whole likeness thing. That's the main thing I just don't get because it's literally not costing anybody anything in the NCAA. Like it's not part of the payroll. The guys are literally just working for themselves, so it doesn't cost you any money. So what the fuck's the problem? I don't
right.
get it. It strikes such a fucking nerve with me. Okay, I'm okay. I'm good. I fucking
Um, yes, like I said, if you're on the side of paying college athletes, or not even paying college athletes, but just like the greediness of the NCAA, like that's the first thing you're bringing up. Now, Brendy finally got his power one out, by the way,
welcome back, buddy.
um, and he's back. So we're gonna go to him, and he'll give his thoughts on the excuse me, the whole situation.
So I just want to briefly say what I was gonna say. So straight off the bat, I'll just say yes, college athletes should be paid, and that I will say my stance on this has changed greatly throughout the years. Like when I was in high school, and even like when I like first started college, I was like no, like it's not like they get a scholarship, like that's whatever. But more recently, my stance has changed, and it's not necessarily the fact that now I listened to the butt end of your conversation, Bobby, and you were saying how like the NCAA makes all this money, they give none of it to the players. I think that's a good point, but one point I want to briefly bring up though is, and this is limited to some sports, so like let me finish like what I have to say real quick. Um, I feel like so like for some sports um there is a good enough alternative to college so like let's take the basketball for example. I'll get to football later, but for basketball it's like you can go into the G League, you can go overseas and get paid six figures and then go back and play in the NBA if you want to and get your real money then. So I think when it comes to some athletes, and I'll say like basketball college athletes. If you are complaining about not getting paid for being a college athlete, I think, or a college basketball player, I think that's on you at that point because as a basketball player, you have plenty of alternatives, and there you could be successful. Now, the problem with that argument is that it kind of comes to a halt when you talk about football because for football there's not a good alternative. It's literally like because you can't come out of or you can't come out of high school straight into the NFL. You have
Right.
you have to be at least you have to play at least 3 years, or you have to be 3 years
2 years.
removed.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah, you have to be 3 years removed from high school, and then you can declare. Um, Now, of like, there's no good alternative to college football. Maybe the XFL can make some sort of move, but I highly, highly doubt that. And even so, it's like I don't even know what the rules are for high school athletes going into the XFL. Would be interesting to see, like if it actually succeeds, like what that would be. But so it's kind of a split argument in that perspective. But with football, it's like it's a little bit more understandable why you'd want to pay the players because first of all, college football is probably one of the most popular sports in the country, if not the most popular. Um, and and the thing about those athletes is like a lot of them come from like very like difficult circumstances,
Mhm.
which I'm sure one of you guys have brought
Yeah,
up as
Tyler
well.
touched on
Yeah, I
it
did,
briefly.
yeah.
Um, and I will say I have had the pleasure of having a couple classes with a few athletes. Both of them were actually basketball, but one of which I've actually talked about quite a bit. I had my freshman year of college at Tennessee was Admiral Schofield, and I just want to briefly talk about him for a second. We had an 8 a.m. math class. It was
Oh.
I think it was like some sort of statistics class.
Oh my God, no.
Um,
Hmm.
but so like it wasn't too bad for me because I don't like Bob. You knew me in college. It's like what would I do? I would literally go to class and then I would go to bed,
Yeah,
and then
that's
I would be awake,
yeah.
for all night and do my homework then. So it wasn't too bad for me, but for Admiral, like literally he would come to class and go to bed. I'm not even kidding. Like he would sleep in class because um yeah, I was talking to him and I was like, dude, like you look really tired. He was like, yeah, dude, I only got 2 hours of sleep last night.
Ugh.
I was like, shit, dude, like how are you gonna get more rest? He's like, oh, if I lay my head down for 30 minutes, I'll be fine. Like that's
Jeez,
literally
man.
what he's.
The power
Yeah,
nap.
yeah. Like, he was literally taking power naps in class, and like he would leave class, and like his energy would be back. So like it it's like athletes like that kind of find a way to get around it.
Yep.
So it's very interesting to see like athletes can take a beating and like not get paid for it. Especially like when you're basically having like 18-hour practices, um,
Yeah.
like kind of like he was, and like he still had classes because like I'll be completely honest. So like Admiral Schofield, I believe he got drafted, if I'm
Did he?
not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I forget. He's on an NBA roster right now. I think he's on this. I'll look it up. I thought it was the Celtics, but I think that's wrong.
So yeah, so I believe he got drafted. But the thing is like he got a scholarship as well. But like when he came to Tennessee, like he was not obviously not like a sure shot NBA type of player. Like he was actually there and like doing classes and stuff. Um, which is kind of interesting coming from kind of interesting getting that perspective. Um, but so that's just kind of my 2 cents. It's like for some sports, like I can completely understand the argument. Like, yeah, pay the fucking players. They take beatings. They come up from bad circumstances. And then there's other sports where it's like, okay, like you have alternatives. Like there's playing. So that's all I have to say about that.
I'll say that one point that I haven't brought up that definitely is a huge point for I would argue people who say we shouldn't pay them is it's probably not fair to the rest of the students. Like you're only going to get paid from coming here and playing sports, but if you're here to get a science degree and possibly cure cancer, you're not gonna get paid, or even be a teacher for that matter. And we definitely know, and I'm not gonna get into politics. Teachers are very underpaid. Like, and
Mm.
I don't even think it's a question anymore. So eh, that's where it gets a little weird for me. It's like I can't justify paying somebody just for playing a sport. You know what I mean? And I understand it's a huge time commitment. Well, so are a lot of other majors too. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like my major specifically, again, and no, I don't want to be paid for. I mean, yes, I do want to be paid, but I definitely don't deserve it over others. Mine is time. My film major is time consuming because I have to go out and go through like 3 different stages of things to even submit a project, and it's time consuming and tedious every time. Producing the show is a good example of this because we have to put hours in it behind the scenes to make sure that the broadcast stays up and doesn't cut out. Thank you, Xfinity. We gotta make sure we know what we're talking about. We gotta make sure we have rundowns ready. We gotta make sure everything just works, and that's time. Now, a picture that on a grander scale, that's my major. So, and that's what gets a little weird for me is that okay, so we're just only gonna pay the football, basketball players, right? What about the women who play like softball or something, which doesn't have unfortunately a massive following on the professional level. You know what I mean? That's where this gets tough in the way I'm
Right.
thinking, in my line of thinking.
By the way, I just put a cap on earlier. Admiral Schofield actually got drafted by the Sixers, but then it was like
Ooh.
one of those picks that went to Washington, so
Oh,
he's on Washington.
okay.
But yeah, I get that. I mean, look, as I said before, like this is not an easy. Either side you're on, this is not an easy debate. I mean, this is a huge debate. I guess the one last thing I'll add for in favor of athletes being paid is that if you pay athletes, there's a better chance of them staying in school for longer, which in turn, could get them a degree, which could help them. It's very hard to become a professional athlete. Some guys may get drafted and may fall out of the league in 1 year and don't get that shot. You have guys in college that get paid, they stay longer, they get their degree. They're or not even get drafted. Like the guys that don't make it, like at least they have a backup plan
Yeah.
now. Um, that would just be my last thing on that. But again, this this is a tough, really tough argument. As we kind of talk about this, the state of California right now is trying to pass a bill that would allow basically athletes to get paid for somewhat paid for their likeness. It's called the Fair Pay to Play Act.
Which I
Um,
heard Tebow had some things to say about earlier today.
yeah, he did, which is funny. Well, I mean, being a college athlete, but he was at his time one of the best and one of the most popular, and he was actually on the other side, on the side that they shouldn't get paid. The assembly actually voted 72 to nothing, which is interesting. Um, but yeah, it's just they're doing that. South Carolina is also planning to do something in January about it. So it's always going to be a hot topic. I don't think unless it gets like definitely settled, it's ever going to be
Yeah.
it's always going to be talked about. But it looks like California is trying to do what they can, and maybe South Carolina, and then maybe it might be the same situation, like for example, like the online gambling situation where, for a while it was like not looked at great, and it was only obviously Vegas and Nevada, and look at it now. I mean, New Jersey was one of the big
Fuck
guys, and
yeah, Jersey.
and now it's spreading. So you never know, but
I'll say
that is
that
gonna
I will. Sorry, I will
okay.
settle literally, and I mean I can't speak for in behalf of the athletes, but for my own personal opinion, I will settle if you just let the athletes market themselves and make money off their own likeness, work their own way. They still have to put in the
Right.
work, but student athlete definitely helps them. You can at least give them that. I mean, Christ, you make billions, and it doesn't even cost you a dime for that. So Jesus Christ, just let them do it. God's sake. Anyway,
With that, we will put a cap on the discussion, and we will end on our NFL picks for week 2. To recap last week, me and Bobby went 2-1, giving us 2 points because we did not get the score right. Brendy went 1-2, getting 1 point. This week, we are highlighting again 3 games. First game we get on tap is Pittsburgh let me see. I'm sorry. I think it's Pittsburgh, Seattle at Pittsburgh, I believe. Excuse me. We have New Orleans and the LA Rams, rematch of the NFC Championship game last year. And then our last game is the Sunday Night Football game, Philly at Atlanta. I will start with my picks. For the Pittsburgh game, I have Pittsburgh winning 30-21 over Seattle. I think this game has sneaky shootout potential. I could see this game being a really high scoring game. Pittsburgh did not put on a good showing last week
You're
against the
goddamn right they
Patriots.
didn't. Fuck you,
James
Pittsburgh.
Conner was, I think, like had 21 yards on 10 carries or something like that.
McDonald
So
got thrown to once.
sorry. I'm sorry. Who'd you say?
McDonald, or however you say his name, he
Oh
got
yeah,
thrown
yeah,
to
McDonald. Yeah, yeah.
fucking once.
So yeah, I think Pittsburgh bounces back, and Seattle barely squeaked by the Bengals, who we had not too much to say about on our preview show. But I think Russell Wilson could have a big game.
You better.
Next game, again, I'm gonna say this again, sneaky shootout potential, but I don't think it's that sneaky. I think this game's kind of gonna blow up. I have New Orleans winning 37-31 over the Rams. I think they get the revenge from last year's game. Drew Brees literally like this guy is so cold blooded. The Houston Texans scored, I think, 37 seconds left, and they had no timeouts on Monday Night Football. This guy takes 2 plays, goes down the field, gets in the field goal range, and they win the game. And I don't know how many times I've seen him do that. So I have them winning, and then my last game, I have Atlanta winning over Philly, 23-20. Awful outing by Atlanta last week. Matt Ryan had a tough game, and their offensive line had a tough game. Dalvin Cook kind of ran all over them. Philly had a fucking scare in the first half. I think they were down 21-6 at
It had us in the
halftime or
first
something
half,
to the
not gonna lie.
Redskins. Yeah, and they ended up coming back, but I think Atlanta squeezes it out. All right, Bobby, what are your picks for the week?
All right, so starting with Seattle and Pittsburgh. I got Pittsburgh just barely squeezing this one out, 21-17. I think they're playing with a huge chip on their shoulder. I would at this point. So I'm going to say that their first game back at home, huge chip on their shoulder after a blowout and against a team that is just kind of barely squeezing by. I got them winning 21-17. Yeah, so that's really what I got to say about that. So New Orleans and the Rams. I did not know they were playing this week. I did not know the revenge game was coming back already. So I got New Orleans winning 24-14. I have some questions for the Rams offense right now. I like you said, Tyler, Breeze is just the most cold-blooded fucking dude on the face of the planet right now. And New Orleans just every time I read their roster, they just seem stacked. So I wouldn't be surprised. And again, another chip on their shoulder game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints are just gonna march on down the field each drive just to prove a point. So I wouldn't be surprised. So I got New Orleans winning 24-14. Philly, Atlanta. I'm gonna go Philly on this one. I have another 21-17 finish in favor of Philly. And my main thing is that so Philly scared me a little bit against Washington. They had no business going down that much in that game. However, again, on paper, you look at the Eagles roster, and that offense is stacked, dude. I mean, their receiving game is ridiculous. And if Carson Wentz is gonna continue to be Carson Wentz, then this offense is gonna be insane. And I don't know if Atlanta's secondary can keep up. And I will also say that I know Philly's secondary is not great right now. However, really you got to worry about Julio the most, and he's been a fly trap and was really shut down last week. So I have Philly just edging this one out 21-17.
And Brendy, we will end on you. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, my mic is muted. So not really a whole lot to say about the Seattle and Pittsburgh game. I really think Pittsburgh was just embarrassed last week, and I yeah. So I think they're gonna come out at home against Seattle pretty strong. I think Russell Wilson obviously like Bobby always brags he's a fantasy beast. He'll probably can. I think it'll be a pretty competitive game, but I do think at the end Pittsburgh will finally pull away and take it 30-20. And the Saints at the Rams. The Rams are looking, and they're a little odd. There's a lot of questions with them. And I think with the Saints, they definitely look really stacked. So I think this game is gonna come down to whoever has the ball last. I think it's just gonna be a simple fact that something weird is gonna happen, and I think the Rams will just like this is literally just this was kind of a coin flip for me. Simply for the fact that the Rams are home and the Saints are a good team, and but I'll have Rams getting the last. I'll have the Rams getting it. You timed that so badly, by the way. Um, but the Rams, I'll have getting the last possession and getting a touchdown win at the at the last play of the game, 24-17, and then Philly at Atlanta. This is not really an Atlanta team I'm liking right now. But I do like the fact that that Philly didn't play against Washington very well. Which I mean, I guess that kind of makes me a little bit, excited that maybe Atlanta could actually get a win this season. So, and Bobby, you brought up the fact that Julio was locked down really well last week. Well, that's because they were going against an elite defense.
Yeah.
And I don't think Philly's defense is anywhere near as good as like they have a good defense, but not like Minnesota good. And
Arguable,
I
yes.
what's that?
I said arguable, but yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think the secondary for the Vikings is better, but the Eagles have one of the best D lines in the league.
Well, so I definitely think if Matt Ryan can get online with Julio, it'll be a very nice matchup. I think it's going to be quite a shootout though. I think it's just going to be a field goal win for the Falcons, 33-30.
And with that, we wrap up the show. This was a really good one. I think it was really interesting, kind of offbeat to what we usually do, but it was nice, and we'll probably continue to do some topics like
pleasant.
that in the future. Unfortunately, like I said earlier in the show, Zach was not with us today. Hopefully, we can get him back on track because I'm missing. I'm
Missing the start of the week,
Oh yeah.
I know. I just miss Zach. He's a lovely human.
And so hopefully he's back next week. We'll take him off the injured list. But if you want to contact us, we are on Twitter at Comply Network. Also, your boy today got on Facebook and finally messed with the Facebook page that's been up for a year and hasn't been touched. So if you can find us on Facebook too, we're also at Comply. I think we're at Comply Podcast there. That's not good. At Comply Network, Comply Podcast.
Yeah.
But we're fine.
We're working on
But
it.
yeah, the place to reach us is on Twitter. That's what we're all on the most. So with that was episode 33. We'll be back next time with episode 34. Looking forward to it. Like I said, hopefully we have Zach back. But until then, we will see you next time. And that is it for us. Thank you for watching. And episode 34 next time. We'll see you then.